you're working way too much harder than you need to. If you're already wearing yourself thin with the sales volume that you have, if you 2x this, you're going to kill yourself.
In this episode, you're going to hear a totally different take on what success for married entrepreneurs looks like.
Yeah, listen for the Lazy Millionaire approach to investing, because that's pretty simple and effective and really similar to how we've been building our portfolio over the last few years.
Also, listen for practical rhythms that they use on what they decide to delegate, automate, or completely eliminate.
I love it. Let's jump in. Welcome to the Our Family Invest podcast, where we explore what happens when family, purpose, and entrepreneurship align. I'm Mike, a former Maui firefighter who reached financial freedom in just 5 years through real estate investing.
And I'm Caroline, a Maui-based realtor here to educate, empower, and elevate my clients to make smart real estate moves, whether right here at home or through my nationwide network.
Together, we're chasing our full potential as individuals, as a couple, and as a family. We're here to build a life that matters. And each week we share the stories of couples who inspire us to love harder, dream bigger, and grow bolder. So join us and let's learn, share, and grow together. Today we're excited to have Robert and Kaylee Fukui on the show. Now, Robert spent 25 years building major brands with companies like Coca-Cola, Novartis, and Bristol-Myers Squibb. He was climbing, winning, performing at the highest level. Then, at 35, he became a widower. And everything he thought about success got stripped down to what actually matters. Now he and Kaylee help married entrepreneurs build wealth without sacrificing their marriage through their Thriving in Tandem program. They call it the Lazy Millionaire approach. Work smarter, simplify aggressively, and refuse to let ambition outrun alignment. Robert, Kaylee, thank you guys both so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you. But before we dive into this episode, I want you to take a minute to introduce each other to our audience. So maybe Robert, take a second to introduce Kaylee, and then Kaylee, take a minute to tell us a little bit about Robert.
Yeah. So first, I got to say, obviously, I know you're around a lot of Japanese because you didn't ask us how to pronounce my last name.
I thought the same thing. You're like one of the very few.
Usually that's like the first question Jose is like, okay, how do you say your last name? So anyways, great job, Mike. But yeah, Kaylee, who's Kaylee? Well, one, she definitely challenges me in a good way. I mean, she says the things that need to be said that I don't want to hear. Yeah. She doesn't like that chop. And I said, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it because nobody else is going to do it. But no, she's just the most, gracious, and it's like my biggest supporter, encourager. And yeah, she's definitely going to she has my back. So it's anyone I can trust in the world, it's her. And I always know that her heart is always in the right place, especially when it comes to us or it comes to me. And so just really appreciate she's just honest, sometimes brutally honest, but it's good. I know where she stands, and it makes it for a simpler relationship when nothing's hidden. And so that can be challenging for a lot of couples when people are honest with each other. But if you're not, then things get buried under the rug, and it's going to come up somewhere, and usually in some kind of negative emotional reaction or eruption. And so just really appreciate it about her and how she's kind of, mentored me in that area.
I love that. Kaylee, what would you say about Robert?
But my island boy, he has got so much patience, you guys, that I love it. And there's so many good qualities about you, but I feel so safe around him. He has cultivated a place. I didn't have that growing up. And so he's really good about protecting. I feel protected with him. And like I can say anything and he'll love me no matter what. And that he's not going anywhere. Another word is committed. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. And it's kind of an old word these days. You don't hear it very much anymore, but he is committed. And I know when he said I do, you meant forever. And those are just some of the great many qualities that I love about him.
I love that.
All right, so let's take it back before we jump into what you two do. But how did you first meet, and what was your first date like?
Okay, it was not simple dating me. Let's put it that way.
I told you she challenges me. Start from the very beginning. So we met online. Yeah, we met online. So I was relatively new to Southern California. I grew up in Northern California, relocated down here for a job. Also, as I mentioned, my previous wife, she grew up down here, so her dad had cancer, and so just be able to be closer to him and the family. So she passed about 2 years after we had moved down here. So, I didn't really know anybody. And so when it got to a point where I was ready to date, I just went online because I was like, well, I don't want to go to a club or a bar or, whatever. It's like, how do you meet people? And I'm also an introvert. So, going up to a woman and, striking up a conversation was just struck the fear of God in me. So I just went online and, long story short, we connected online. And, so I remember she lived in Ventura, which is about an hour, to the coast from here in Pasadena. And, just said, hey, where do you want to meet? Where do you want to, I'll take you out to dinner. So you have any suggestions? And she's like, oh, you figure it out. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's a lot of pressure when you don't know the area.
Terrible
Like,
answer, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if it was here in Pasadena, I know where to take her. Right. But I'm like, okay, it's Ventura. I know nothing about Ventura. Like, who knows what I'm going to pick. So I ended up picking the restaurant on the pier. So I figured that's got to be safe.
Well, because you never know what they're going to, is it going to be a coffee date? Is it going to be a water date? Is it going to be like
a water date?
I don't know what the expectations are. And I thought, well, men like a challenge. So.
Yeah.
And to be fair, did you have access to Google and Yelp at this time for restaurant ideas?
It must have been something because I know I looked it up. So this was what, 20
years ago,
22 years ago.
Okay.
So there it was the early stages, but there was Google and Yahoo. Yeah. But still it wasn't like it is now, the things it is now. So anyways, I figured the restaurant on the pier is safe. At least we have a view. That's the way I looked at it. So we had a nice, date. So there's a lot that went down in a date, but anyways, we had a good time. But I could tell early on she wasn't one to divulge too much information off the bat. And so, but we had a good time, and then we kind of walked on the pier after dinner. And as I'm walking to her car, I said to her, I had a really good time, and she said, I did too. So I asked her, do you want to do this again? And she goes,
Also, really great answer.
Yeah. So I'm like, Mike, I don't know what you would do, but I was like, I don't know what to do with this. Right.
Yeah.
And so
this is my marketing husband, the next move.
So I'm thinking, it's it's a good solid hour drive back home. And I'm like, I want to know one way or the other. Yes or no? I need to know.
Because most guys would just let me off the hook and be like, okay, this is too much trouble, too much work. And they just go on.
So I'm just going to say, okay. So I said, I told her, because I was in pharmaceutical sales at the time. And so my sales territory happened to cover Ventura area. So I told her, I said, well, I'm going to be back in town on Wednesday. So you want to go grab a drink or something?
And I wasn't sure because I didn't know what I was going to do. Maybe my girlfriends wanted to get together or something else might pop up.
So she hemmed and hawed, but she eventually did say yes. So did it get at least that part, getting another date was simpler after that. But anyways, that was the kind of the snapshot of who she is and how we are and how we have to operate and how we have to communicate.
It didn't get any simpler after that.
I mean, you talk about testing your communication skills. I mean, that first date was it. So yeah, it didn't get that much simpler. It was good, but definitely, like I said earlier, like she challenges me in a good way. So she definitely challenged me from the very start. She did.
Yeah. That leads into my next question, which is something that you wrote on the intake form that we had you fill out, is that you guys did 2 years of marriage counseling before you got married, which I think is brilliant. And I've only heard of a few people actually doing that. But what did that teach you about the conversations that you needed to have with each other?
Let's just say when I first mentioned it to him that I thought he needed to go to counseling, he was not too thrilled about the idea.
Yeah.
So
I bet.
I don't even know if we were really dating at that point. We had 4 dates. So we had known each other a little over a month at this point. And then she says, I think you should go to counseling. And I'm looking at her like, where did this come from? Like,
Oh.
like we hadn't even had an argument. So I'm like, what is this all about? So, the backstory is she, because my wife had passed away a year and a half before I met Kaylee.
Mhm. And he loved her and would still be married to her. Because some of my girlfriends would say, oh, well, at least he doesn't have an ex-wife. And I said, but he loved her. And
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure, because I thought, oh, Robert's got a big heart. And I thought, oh, you know what? Before I get too much more involved in this, I wanted to make sure he had room in his heart for me. I knew he'd always love her, and I'd be okay with that. I just didn't want to be competing with a ghost.
Fair.
So she explained her rationale. So I said, okay. So long story short, I started going and then ended up seeing her counselor. And then what happened was I would schedule the session towards the end of the day so I could work and then just kind of time it. So I'm working in her area or in that area, go to the session, and I would pick her up and go grab dinner. And then she would say, so the first session, she's like, so how'd it go?
Because inquiring minds. Come on, you guys. I want to know.
I said, good. I said, good. She's like, so what happened? What'd you guys talk about? Da-da-da-da. Like, she's going off the thing, right? And I'm like, I just went through an hour. Like, one, I don't want to go to counseling anyway. And now she wants me to relive this last hour. And I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do. I want to have dinner and enjoy myself, right? So second time, this happened again. She's like pressing, like, what happened? What happened? I give her short answers. And so then I said, why don't you just come with me? Because then you can get your answers answered right from the source. And
He's like, I only have to go through it one time.
yeah, exactly. And I don't have to go this back and forth. And so she's like, no, this is your session. I said, yeah, but you want to know. It's like, it might be my session, but clearly
It's our session.
Yeah.
Exactly. So she said, okay. And then, so basically from then on, it turned into relationship counseling. And yeah, absolutely. It was, looking back on hindsight, it was the best thing we could have done for our relationship. Because, as you know, we addressed all the stuff that couples deal with on their own after they get married, but we did it with a counselor. And we also did it when we weren't at each other's throats, because that's when most couples go to counseling, is when it's like almost like a last ditch approach, right? So you're already emotionally heated. And for some people might be almost mentally checked out partially from the relationship. So that's like the worst time you can go, right? So we went when things were well. So as you know, I was like, we hadn't even had an argument. So we were able to really address things in a way that we didn't already have the years of baggage in relationship with each other to like throw out, you said, she said, and you did this back then, and not, rehash the last history of your relationship. We didn't have that. So we were able to do it with a little bit more of a, I don't know if objective is the right word, but a little bit more calm, approach to it because of that. So definitely the best thing we did for our relationship was that. And it's helped us not only now with us, but just between her and I, but just even with the couples that we're coaching and consulting with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's so good. I think that's so admirable that you would do that and take that. And I mean, especially after 4 dates, like, okay, that's pretty wild.
Just see what he's made of, you know what I mean?
Caroline, you're nice, Too much else.
I'm curious, Kaylee, like, I feel like I had really high standards. I also told Mike that we weren't compatible when he first asked me out on a date.
She did.
But I'm curious, was that your kind of filter going into dating, period, whether that was Robert or someone else? Like, this is kind of what we're going to go through at the beginning?
Well, I think in my life growing up, I had a lot of people walk out on me in my life. And I think when I met Robert, I saw something different about him because I had never asked anybody else to go to counseling. And I just wanted to make sure.
I was the first, yeah.
Yes, you're the first, honey. You're lucky. You know what? I wanted to see what he was made out of. And because these days, so many times people, like a little bump in the road comes to the relationship or to them and they're out of there. And it's like, you know what? I need someone that's going to be in it for the long haul. And like I said, I didn't have that growing up. And so I realized that was important to me.
Yeah. So, okay. So at this time, you're still working, Robert. You've got the W-2 job. It's going well. It sounds like you're climbing the corporate ladder. What made you decide to go into business for yourself?
Yeah, that's a story.
He didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, I think when we were dating, she was like, "Oh yeah, I can see you having a business," and I'm like, "Too risky."
Because I'm from third generation entrepreneur, so I've been around a lot of business people, and he's like, "Oh no, no way."
Yeah, so growing up, like my dad was risk averse, and so he just said, go to school, get a job, get a good job, stay out of debt, kind of thing. And so,
Yep.
went to school, got a marketing degree, and then my first job out of college was at Coca-Cola, and then I went to the pharmaceutical industry. So I went from selling Coke to selling drugs. So that's a funny story.
Perfect.
Natural transition, right? So,
Yeah.
so I was really comfortable in that, and had a great career, had a lot of favor within the organization, and between the salary and commissions and company cars and all that, all the benefits and the trips and all that stuff, it was cool, right? So I was comfortable. Then I got challenged, and then the church we've ended up landing on after we got married, they're really talking about impact in the marketplace, and what is the purpose that you have. It's not just coming to church, but how can you impact people outside of where you are, including your job or your business. And so that just got me thinking about the future long term. Is like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing long term? Is it supposed to be here, climb the corporate ladder? If so, great. Is it supposed to be something different? So I really felt it was going to be starting a business. And like I said, maybe Katie planted that seed years ago. And so I just wondering, like, what would it be? Because I didn't know what kind of business it would be. So I pulled up, all the industries, and I started checking one off each of the times, like, nope, don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know what I want to do. so I thought, well, maybe I'll consult with business. I'll do some marketing consulting. And I looked at it as paid market research, that I'll just consult with different types of business, of different industries, and maybe I'll land on something. And it turned out I just really loved the consulting aspect. And it wasn't just about how it helped the business, but really about how it helped the owners and the team and all that stuff. So the impact the business makes really just trickles down to the people. At the bottom line, it's all about the people. And I really enjoyed the relationships that I built with the clients and all that. So that's really the thing that really drove me, was that connection of relationships. And so I said, okay, this is it. I think this is it. And about 9 years ago, left that to do it full time. And then in the process, what happened was, as they're hiring me for marketing help, as I'm looking into the business, I was like, man, I'm looking at the financials, I'm looking at operations, I'm looking at systems or lack of thereof. And I was like, you're working way too much harder than you need to. And I said, and then they're also opening about their personal life and how the business was overtaking their personal life. And obviously affects the marriage, affects the family, the kids, and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, no wonder. You're just killing yourself because you've got so many gaps in the business, and you're trying to overcome it with just putting in more time in and try to get more sales. And I said, if you're already wearing yourself thin with the sales volume that you have, if you 2X this, you're going to kill yourself, right? Because they don't have any systems for delegation or more efficiencies, more productivity, right? They don't have maybe some of the technology or equipment, whatever, you name it, all down the line. There's just so much inefficiencies that growth was just going to kill them. And so that's when I looked at Kaylee and I said, hey, I think there's an elephant in the room that these owners don't want to deal with. They're accepting the hustle and grind as normal because I think they've been taught that with a lot of the big business gurus out there, that you're going to have to sacrifice your family and your relationships to build a successful business. And I said, they're killing themselves. And I think they want a better way, but they don't think there's a better way. They're just accepting this as a normal. And so I said, let's help that. Let's add the relational element into it. How can they build a healthy business and a healthy marriage at the same time? Let's do that. So that's when we added that wrinkle and say, okay, if we're going to consult with you, we're going to consult with you as husband and wife.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like that.
Were most business owners open to that? Because a lot of times you'll see if the couple isn't working together, there's a lot of separation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're open to it because whether they work together or not, it bleeds over.
Correct.
One bleeds over into the other. And a lot of times we marry somebody that's opposite. And even if you're not in the business, like say you're really discerning or you're great with bookkeeping or, there could be a lot of different things that you could run by your spouse. even though you don't have to get them stuck in the weeds and all that, just the big picture where they can help and want to be involved.
Yeah, I think some, some don't think, some are open, some aren't open, what I say, but I think the people that say yes, or typically it's the business owner that realizes this isn't working.
Yeah.
And if the business owner is open to it, the spouse is definitely open to it because they're feeling it, right? So it's really about making sure the business owner understands this is an issue, because some will justify the overwork and the hustle by saying we're providing for the family, and that's their excuse for just grinding it out, right? But once the business owner is open to it, the spouse is open to it because they're feeling it, they want help, and so. The ones that obviously the clients that come to us obviously are like, yeah, we need help, right? So, we don't have to convince them. It's as we're talking outside, right, to people. Most people are like, yeah, most business owners are like, yeah, that's, but whether or not they're open to actually getting help, that's the other thing. That's the other story. But, obviously for the ones that come to us, they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the purposes of this podcast is changing the narrative of what success looks like. And it's not all hustle and grind, and you can have a thriving family. So I love that people are wanting more. Can you tell us about Thriving in Tandem? What is it and who do you serve?
Yeah, we're, like I was explaining earlier, we're a business consulting practice. Basically, we help the business scale and grow, but do it in a healthy way, right? So we prioritize marriage and family first and foremost. So we help you build with a kind of a family first mentality, right? Not just build, but build with a family first mentality, so that it's like, how do we grow well? It's not like, how do we grow so that we can do family well? How do we do family well as we grow? And so it's a consulting practice. We just kind of add the elements of business acumen with, okay, how do we set proper boundaries? How do we communicate better and resolve conflict, resolve issues? Because most of our clients are husband and wife teams like you two.
Yeah.
So because
we want to help them. We want to help them grow their business, not so that they have more time to put in the business, so that they have that time to spend with their families.
Yeah.
Correct.
And since they're husband and wife teams, conflicts is usually a big issue, right? How do we work better as a team? How to resolve issues? Because that's what we've seen as the number one probably reasons that growth gets stunted in a husband and wife business, husband and wife team, is their inability to make key decisions to move forward, because they get stuck in that. They get stuck in that, right? It just becomes heated arguments. There's the same thing over and over again. They never be able to resolve issues and move forward. So in the meantime, the business is just going as status quo, right? We're not making the changes we need to really make the improvements, but we're stuck in different ways of doing things, right? One, usually it's like, especially from a speed aspect, one wants to grow a little bit faster than the other. And so usually the visionary wants to let's move, let's like shoot, aim later. And then the wife or the spouse is usually the operational side who's got to figure out how to make it work. Right. So then that in alone creates tension of how do we build. Right. And so that's usually a big issue.
Hey family, real quick. If you'd rather watch your content, head over to Our Family Invests on YouTube. You'll find this episode and all our episodes over there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your takeaways in the comments. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, I like that. I think one of the things that really struck out, one of the things that really stood out to me was the lazy millionaire approach that you talk about. I love that concept. Don't know what it means, but I love lazy millionaire. Sounds great. Can you unpack that for me a little bit?
Well, they say let your money work for you. You don't work for the money, but I mean, you do have to work to get income, but then let your money work for you. Too many times when people are talking about building wealth and, you'll hear like get 5-7 sources of income. They're trying to do everything all at once. Right. So, when it comes to building wealth, I said, it's how is the money just working for you? Literally, like, meaning the less you do, how can the money grow with you doing as little as possible? Right. Yeah. That's true investment. Right. And so, the first phase just was when I was in pharmaceuticals, or when I was in corporate, was just investing to myself, that 401k, they had a company match. So they matched dollar for dollar for the first 6% of the income that I put in. And I knew so many people that weren't even doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I knew people that had made more money than I did, but yet weren't building wealth because they're spending it all. Right.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, I didn't grow up in a household. My dad really wasn't investment savvy per se. So I kind of have to learn as I go, but I understood math. and I said,
Compound interest.
I said, you're telling me the minute I invest money, you're going to match that 100%. So that's a pretty good return, right? I mean,
Who else is going to do that?
Where do you get that kind of return? So at least at that, max that out, right? So that started that for me. That mentality is like, okay, how do I just keep that thing going? Like, and then we started investing in other things, and then eventually started investing in real estate. So just like over the years, is adding one extra layer of investment, but not try to do everything all at once, but add an extra layer of investment. And so, it got to the point by the time I left pharmaceuticals when I was 50, and it was interesting. I actually had a thought in my early 40s, like, it'd be kind of cool it was just kind of like a fun thing to think about. It'd kind of be cool to retire at 50, right? I didn't think that was really going to happen, but I just threw it out there. Next thing I know, when I left pharmaceuticals to do this full time, I was like, one was Kaylee was like kind of worried about the money, right? The security and all that. And then, so I did, for the first time ever, I did our net worth calculation. And I said, so I showed her, I was like, honey, check this out. I go, this surprised me because I didn't check my 401k. I didn't really check the equity values in our properties and all that kind of stuff. I never really checked that. I just knew we were doing good, right? We were cash flowing and all that kind of stuff. So, and I knew inherently things were growing as far as the equity and on the assets and all that. But with our investments and all that, I really didn't keep tabs on it per se, because I didn't want to be influenced by market fluctuations. Right. Especially like your retirement, like so many people, like in 08, 09, right? When everything tanked, people were freaked out. I tell people now, I said, I didn't lose a dime in 08, 09 because I didn't sell at a loss.
We just wrote it out.
I didn't sell a loss. In fact, I just kept investing because it was all direct deposited. So which means I was investing on the way down, on the way up. So I was like, and right now it's on an all-time high. So I said, I don't want to get influenced, get my emotions involved with that stuff. So that's why I didn't keep tabs on that stuff along. But anyways, all to say is I did the net worth and I said, hey, if this thing crashes and burns, this business idea, we're going to be okay. We're not going to be living on the streets. And we actually have property that I think one of our duplexes are already paid off. And I said, hey, if anything, we move into duplex. I was like, we got something, like we're not going to be on the streets. So that helped her. Right. And then it was like, oh, we were doing things right. We're just kind of counting. And then we end up selling our real estate investments. And now we're investors in the Class A apartments. So now we don't do anything when it comes to real estate. We just participate every quarter. We get these checks, right? And I ran the numbers. And I'm like, honey, we make more now doing nothing than when we actually were owning these properties like full on, right? I was like, this is cool.
And just to
so
highlight
obviously
that
when we had our own property. What's that?
Yeah, and just to highlight that too, that was a long play. It wasn't a put it in the bank account, put it in a property and sell it next year. You took time. And I think that's what a lot of times people forget about is like, just set it and forget it.
It's funny. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, and it was nothing high risk. You know what I mean? How for us, it wasn't like, oh, we're going to get rich tomorrow. Like quick rich. You know what I mean? It's just steady plotting.
I think that's the problem, right? That's the problem with a lot of people today is they're looking for like, how can I make the most money as quickly as possible? And that's where you see these too good to be true type of investments. But we kind of started the same way that you did, where it's like, I remember in 2005, I was working for the Four Seasons and they had a company match on their 401k. I was like, well, max that out. 100%, max that out, right? And then I went on and I worked for the Maui County Fire Department for 10 years. And there was a certain amount that we could put into a deferred compensation retirement account kind of thing every month. Max that out, max it out, max it out. And so we kept doing that until we had enough money to build an ADU onto our house. And then we bought short-term rentals and we just kept rolling over that profits from those things into more real estate. So, and we made a lot of money in real estate specifically, but it was on the backbone of investing over a long period of time in, stocks and mutual funds and index funds and all that kind of stuff. And then now we've gotten to the point where it's like, we knew when we got into short-term rentals that it was going to be a a long-term play in real estate, but also the quickest way for us to get to passive income. And so the short-term rental route wasn't something we wanted to do for a long time, but it was something that we wanted to do until we could start diversifying into more passive asset classes. And so now we still have a few short-term rentals, but we have the long-term rentals, we have the syndications, like we invest in apartment complexes and mobile home parks and self-storage and all those kinds of things too. But we're still investing in stocks and even crypto, and we're dollar cost averaging stuff and on a lot of different levels, right? And it's the same thing too, because we do our net worth. I do it monthly, and I've been doing it for about 5 years. And it's funny, like sometimes it's up and to the right, and then sometimes it is down, right? And you don't like seeing that, but I'm not planning on selling, so it doesn't matter. And if you take a long-term approach, it's amazing at how much you can grow so quickly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's where people may say, because they're too impatient, we're in a microwave society. So whether it's business or investing, they want everything quick and now. So like even in business, in marketing, they want to do something that's going to go viral, and they're pushing on that, right? So whenever you're trying to get that quick hit or trying to maximize return on investments, a lot of times that steers you the wrong way because you're not looking at the risk involved and you're not mitigating those risks, right? Yeah. So like people that flip real estate, yeah, you can get great returns, but obviously there's high risk and they don't mitigate the risk. And so we know, we
know so many people that lost money.
A close friend, they invested into a flip with a friend because they wanted to use the profits as part of a down payment for their house, a new house they want to buy. And I said, flipping as a long-term strategy, if you want to do it, as a long-term play, to continually do it well, but to do it for a short-term gain because you need it for something as personal as your house. I mean, the risk return is just not worth it, right? So, I mean, I didn't say anything, but ultimately they crashed and burned on it.
Yeah, and the person they gave the money to just up and left, and
yeah,
we've heard that story before, sadly.
Yeah. So anyways, it was like, when you have more of a long-term outlook, as you say, right, then the patience, it's amazing. If you have 100 people that were going for short-term returns versus long-term, the higher percentage of the people who have the long-term outlook are going to outperform the people with the short-term outlook, right? Because the risks are just higher, which means your chances of failing is just higher when you're going for short-term gains than for long-term gains.
Yeah. It's funny because one of my good friends is a hedge fund manager, and he is doing everything he can, or for years, just to squeeze the very most out of every deal, like get as much return as possible, right? But over the same period of time that he's working on this, if you invest the same amount of money into an index fund, you are right there. I mean, it is not much better. These hedge fund managers, these guys that are trying to get every last percentage, I mean, you can just get pretty simple and invest in an S&P 500 index or something like that and probably do pretty well.
Yeah. That's the lazy millionaire approach. It's like, I don't want to have to work and stress that hard.
I don't want all that stress, and I don't want to be checking it every day to see how it's doing.
No, I don't care.
And it won't happen overnight.
No, I'm hoping that, when it's time for me to unwind and lay out on the beach more full time, that I can look at that bank account and be like, I'm good there. I'm good. Okay. We can go on whatever trips we want to go on. We can provide for our grandkids at some point or whatever it may be. Like, the money is not a problem because we've been diligent about the lifestyle that we choose to live and the money we choose to put away because of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know you have a knack for simplifying complexities, right, Robert? What is one thing that you see often that you tell people to streamline right away?
Just your own time. Just the own use of your time. So if you're talking about, for the work we do with our business owners, again, they're scrambling, they're wearing multiple hats, hustle and grind. They're doing a lot of things mediocre versus focusing on fewer things, like 2 or 3 things that you're, like as Gay Hendricks would call it, your zone of genius. What are the 2 to 3 business activities that you're excellent at, but it gives you life? I mean, you love it. You'll do it till the cows come home, and you can do it for free, right? You're just totally, just totally motivates you. So if you spend 60% of your time on that, I mean, your business is going to grow. It's going to accelerate because otherwise you're just spreading yourself way too thin across many disciplines that you might be good at doing, but you're not great at. So which means why not outsource? Either hire and delegate, or even contract out, or even automate certain systems, certain tasks. Right now with all the AI tools, it's so much easier, even if you're working by yourself, to at least step one is, what can I automate as much as I can? Right.
Yeah.
And then what do I start to outsource? So a lot of business owners, whether they're a solopreneur or have a small team, they're so afraid of hiring because it's an expense. I said, hiring somebody is not an expense, it's an investment. At the very least, an investment of time. What you hire out for, which means you're getting rid of all these tasks. You're going to get back X amount of hours and time every week. Then you can do the things that you really should be doing and focusing on that'll really grow the business, move the needle. Otherwise, instead of being stuck in invoicing and administrative tasks and all that kind of stuff, right? That's needs to be done, but it doesn't move the business forward, right? Yeah. That's the stuff you just hire out for, or you just automate somehow. So anyways, that's the thing I would say is always like audit your time. You're going to see you're not wasting, but you're spending your time in a lot of areas that's not moving the business forward. Get rid of that stuff, automate, delegate, or eliminate those tasks so you can concentrate most of your time on those 3 activities that will really move the business.
When do you decide when to hire versus when to just simplify?
Well, I mean, those two can kind of go hand in hand, right? First is, what do I need to simplify? How do I simplify? And if it means hiring, then hire, right? I mean, it doesn't take, like these days with the virtual assistant world, there's a virtual assistant for pretty much every task where you don't need a physical presence in the business, right? We know a company here in SoCal, they have virtual assistants from everything from marketing to operational tasks or whatever, right? And I said, what's so easy about those things is you don't have to spend a lot of money up front for that. You can just say, I need 5 hours a week. If you just started with that, 5 hours a week to get rid of these tasks, that's an extra 5 hours I get back. Now what do I do with that, right? It's the stuff that really moved the business forward. If it's just more prospecting, right? An extra 5 hours a week of prospecting for clients or customers, I mean, that's going to move the business, right? Yeah. So I look at it from an investment in time. So simplifying and delegation and hiring, sometimes they're just going to go hand in hand. So you figure out, what do I need to simplify? What do I need to get rid of? The first thing is, what are things I can automate? Because that's the cheapest thing you can do. And then if I need to outsource, then what can I outsource? And how can I start small and then grow from there? And then the last one, the eliminate part, is, what do I need to say no to now or for now or even permanently? Because there's a lot of things that we're just doing. So I can say, for example, for me, I'm a yes man because I like to people pleaser. So I'll say yes to a lot of things. And it may not be things that are really high priority items for our business or our life, but you're just saying yes to. And so we're stacking our calendar with more and more things we're saying yes to, and we don't audit, we don't get rid of things. And so next thing you know, that's why our life and our calendar and our time is just so out of whack, because we just keep adding things on. And so we really got to be honest and audit as we audit our time, is like, hey, what's serving us that we keep and what's not serving us anymore that we got to get rid of.
And you might have to say no or not for now on something that you really want to do, because it might not be the right timing of the season to do it. Or you might not have the time to do it.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good segue into, let's not make light that it is easy to grow or scale a business as a couple. So what would you advise couples on ways to navigate protecting business and family time?
I would say to start, we have weekly meetings every Monday at 3:30. So we sit down, the two of us, and we talk about our finances. We give each other an encouraging word, which goes a long ways. I love it. And we talk about, like, if Robert's got any trips coming up, that he's traveling. So I know what the expectations are. I'm not too thrilled to find out the last minute, oh, I'm going to be gone tomorrow for a week. You know what I mean? And just talk about our relationship. Is there anything that we need to talk about that we need to resolve, and check in with each other and see how we're doing?
Yeah, I think boundaries is the key word, right? Because how do you make sure business isn't spilling into our personal life? So when you're home, you should be home. You should be present, right? If you're at the dinner table, for example, we have a hard no phones at the dinner table, right? In fact, after 6 o'clock, once we have dinner, it's no checking texts and emails and that kind of stuff. It's family time. It's time to be present.
I love that.
You have to create those non-negotiables. Now, we're not 100% on it, but again, you just have to know what the boundaries are and you hold each other accountable. So there's exceptions, right? But we got to make sure those are exceptions and not the rule. So holding boundaries as far as, what does being home look like? How do you stay present? First thing in the morning, we have our morning routines, my personal time, my prayer time, and then we have our prayer time. That's our time to connect first thing before things get busy and out of whack. Then I take my walk, and then I do my smoothie, right? So, and then we have our weekly meetings, the date nights or the date days, whatever the case may be. So you got to create those boundaries. And so you got to look at your calendar and start from scratch. And you put your priority items in the boundary, in your calendar.
First.
Block it out. Look forward to a weekender or a vacation. Like start planning those things out. Block it out. Don't let things get in the way of those things, because otherwise, if you don't plan it out, it's not going to happen, because you're automatically going to fill your calendar with whatever's in front of you. Right. So the high priority items and stuff like that with marriage, your family time and all that, those things tend to take a back seat to kind of talk to all the things that are just present in your business and all that. So boundaries is a big thing that will help you build well.
Yeah. And then do you schedule like dates out a month out or weekly? How do you personally do that?
Well, we just know in general, right, from Friday nights to the weekends, it's our personal time. And so as far as the specifics, as far as what we're going to do on that, it's not always, we don't always have that planned out, but sometimes we do. So sometimes we're looking out and go, hey, let's do this, especially if it's like a concert that we want to go to. So we're always kind of looking ahead of what's something we might want to do. And then like when the summers come around, there's always some kind of concerts in the park and stuff that's going on. So we're always looking through the summer calendars of what's going on and go, okay, what do we do? And next thing I know, Kaylee's blocking out our calendar for stuff. I mean, because, we have shared calendars.
There's all kinds of free things to do.
So we've got shared calendars. So next thing you know, my inbox is like calendar for this, calendar for that. And I'm like, bang, bang, bang. I'm like, okay. So
I got to get it on there before get something else on there.
Otherwise what happens? So because we have the shared calendar, it works. We don't have to, we don't have to check in all the time. It's just like, okay, it's open. Let's block it out. And we just already know that's something we're committed to doing, and it's fun.
And if he's going to be traveling a lot, when we talk about our monthly meetings, we go over our calendar, see what's happening for the week. Then we'll plan a date night when he gets back.
Yeah.
Intentional about that.
Yeah. I see the book in the background. That's the book that you two wrote, Tandem. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Tandem, the thriving...
The Married Entrepreneur's Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance.
Yeah,
so
good. I used to give her a hard time because she couldn't say the subtitle. And then now so now it's reversed. Go ahead, honey.
The beginning of the book, first half is all about relationships, and the second half is all about building your business and growing it.
Yeah. So that first half, it's kind of half business, half marriage, right? So it's basically oh, great. Now the tree trimmers are going. Good thing we're at the end here. So, it's basically all about what we talked about. How do we build boundaries? How do we set vision as a couple? Mm-hmm. So we know what we're working towards and working towards. How do we resolve these issues? How do we make sure we communicate well, set those healthy boundaries so that we can build our business well, which is the last half of the book, is how do we build well in the business?
Yeah.
I love that. All right, you guys, I'm going to start wrapping it up here, but I got 4 more questions that we ask all of our guests. So, buckle up, 4 more, and we'll get you out, okay? So the first one is, who or what has inspired you most along your journey?
Who is inspired? Wow, that's a big question.
Yes, that is.
so as a Christian, I can do a cop out and say God, right? Jesus. But I would have to say, I've had a series of mentors along the way, but I think just for business, the one that struck out is a guy named Cam McConnell when I first started consulting. And he was a CFO for an aerospace company here. And so he really challenged me to understand P&Ls and the financial picture and see how it impacts business, but also how it impacts your marketing. And so I won't get into details, but I've learned that as I assess the financial statements, from a profit and loss statement to the balance sheets to the cash flow statements, that I can see. I didn't realize until he mentored me. I can see exactly what's going on in the business and what the gaps are and what needs to get fixed.
Mm.
So before I look at what they're doing marketing wise, I can already tell from the P&L what's going on.
Mm.
And so it's amazing that the numbers do tell a story, because every aspect of your business is tied to a dollar sign. And so that's how, and he told me, if you understand financials, you're going to be a better marketer. And I thought he was crazy, because I grew up, in the corporate environment doing marketing and all that. But I learned, I was like, oh, he's right. And so it's allowed me to not just help our clients just with marketing, but it's really how to help their business and structure it well. And then from just on a personal side, just my dad, I mean, he just infused, as Kaylee was saying, just how to say make sure your yes is your yes, your no is your no. When you say yes, you commit, right? And because that builds trust. Obviously, it built trust with her, but it builds trust with our clients. It builds trust with so many people because they can depend on you. And so that was a huge impact in my life.
I like it. What did you say, Kaylee?
I was going to say the person that came to mind for me was Pam Farrell. Her husband wrote, "Women are like waffles, men are like spaghetti." Excuse me.
Men are like waffles, women are like spaghetti.
Yeah, men are like waffles, women are like spaghetti. And so in the book, she talks about the marriage and how the women set the tone, the wife of the household. And that really impressed upon me, like, you know what? I need to take more responsibility about the household and the tone of our home. Like, it's up to me. I know, like, when Robert was at corporate, when we first married, he'd come home and as soon as he gets in the door, I'll be like, honey, how was your day? Tell me all about it. I'd totally stress him out. He's like, can you just let me get in, take my suit and my jacket off and my shoes and take the dog for a walk, and then we can talk about it. So it's just little things like that, because I would he'd be stressed and then I'd be stressed. Well, why aren't you telling me? Don't you want me to know? And I mean, the little things like that I learned from her and reading her book, and just also how to really support your spouse, your husband, and whatever they want to do, because I never wanted to be the wife that I hear this a lot from men, that they'll say, oh, my wife wouldn't let me do that. And I never wanted to be that spouse. And so it's part of why when Robert wanted to leave corporate, I totally encouraged him and was on board with it, even though a lot of our friends had a hard time with it, because they're like, can't let him leave. And I'm like, yeah, I can. So that's who comes to mind for a mentor.
Yeah.
Nice. I have not read that book. Have you?
Yeah. No.
I've never even heard of it. So we'll have to put that on the list.
Yeah, get that book. It's really good. They're good friends of ours too. We met them when we interviewed for podcasts. And
very cool.
The premise is men are like waffles, so we compartmentalize everything. We're women like spaghetti, where they're just everything's all over.
It's all entwined. We can have 100 conversations about 10 different things going at once.
Yeah, that's why I have to stay track. It's like, are we on the same subject? Are we
Yes.
Are we just changed subject? She's like, oh yes, we changed subject. I'm like, oh, okay. I just got to track.
That is very relatable. Yeah.
Not just
she
us,
just plays it off as her Asian brain. That's what she calls it. And she's just going all over the place. And I can't keep up with her. She's like, sorry, Asian brain. I was like, okay.
That's a women brain.
That's all right. Next question. How do you two find peace?
Ooh, find peace. Well, I think for me, it just starts first thing in the morning. I think too many times as people, we just rush into the day, get up and rush into the day, check our phones, all that stuff. So, as I say, how you start the day sets the tone. And so that's why it's, reading the Bible, my prayer time, some meditation time, and then her connecting, take my walk, and then we start. And it just, when there are sometimes mornings where I have to get to an early meeting or something like that, I can tell the difference. And so that's why it's kind of an exception, not the rule. I just want to make sure I protect that morning, because that's so important. And that keeps me peaceful throughout the day, even with stuff that's coming down the pipe, right? But for whatever reason, I'm able to maintain that peace through all the, stuff that's going on.
I agree. I get up in the morning and have my quiet time with the Lord. I journal, we pray together. And that really helps me throughout the day, because there's nothing worse for me than waking up and you're behind on schedule and you're running around like a crazy person. And the rest of the day, I feel like I'm behind. It's like trying to catch up. And my mind is just going nonstop then at that time.
Yeah, that's good.
If you could sit with your younger selves for just a moment, what's one thing you would leave them with?
I would say just take more risks. Don't be afraid to take more risks.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said earlier, I was risk averse early on,
Mm.
and I've learned now how to take, calculated risks, how to move forward a little bit faster than when you're ready. Because I'm an introvert, and on the DISC scale, I'm a C, so which is very analytical, which means I'm going to process everything.
Mhm.
And you're kind of a perfectionist, and so that
Mhm.
kind of slows you down, right? You do great work when you finally do it, but it can slow you it can slow you down. So I've learned to kind of be able to move forward a little bit faster than I was comfortable with, and knowing what's okay to just move now versus what really needs a little bit more process. And so kind of find that nice balance so that you can kind of move forward at a nice little bit, more intentional pace than being worried about things failing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was kind of my fear. This is not going to work. So that's why I'm just checking and triple checking and quadruple checking and all that, which is good for certain things, but at some level you still got to move. And so how to kind of balance that approach. So for me, it would be telling my younger self to kind of don't be afraid, take more risks, more calculated risks, and so that you can move forward a little bit faster.
I
Yeah,
agree with
that's good.
that, and I would say take more risks, especially when you're younger. What's there to lose? I mean, even when you're older too. You know what I mean? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then the other thing that came to mind is just having more empathy for yourself. Like, you know what?
Mhm.
Do I really need to sweat the small stuff? And if it didn't work out, let's just pick ourselves up and keep going. Because, you would say that to a friend of yours if they did something and it didn't work out. You'd be like, you know what? Give them a little grace. Have a little
Mhm.
empathy. But then when it's us, we're like, well, I have to do it right the first time. And oh my gosh, it's got to be perfect. And, we're hard on ourselves. And I'm like, just ease up.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's good.
Good reminders.
All right, last question. What is something that you've learned recently that made you stop and breathe and maybe see life a little differently?
Ooh, what's something that recently? Well, I know this is probably more of just a reaffirming thing, but if you saw the Winter Olympics,
Mhm.
there's Alyssa Liu that just won the gold medal in figure skating. And I don't know if you heard her story or saw her story on it, but
No.
at 13 years old, she won national championship at 13.
Wow.
And she won the year after that. She went to the Olympics in 2022 at the age of 16, took seventh. She took third at the world championships, the month after that. And then she retired at 16.
Wow.
Kind of, just peaking, right? And so
Yeah.
because it wasn't fun anymore,
Mhm.
her schedule was dictated for her, what she ate, her schedule, the choreography, the dance, all this stuff. Everything was just scripted out.
Mhm.
And, she wasn't having fun. And so she's like, I'm done. And 2 years, she was just traveling and doing stuff with friends and just enjoying life. Right. And then, in 2024, she realized she missed figure skating and then snuck back on the rink just to kind of get a little bit of an adrenaline rush to kind of do it. And then she reached out to one of her past coaches and said, "Hey, I think I want to compete again." He tried to talk her out of it, but she was not going to move. So all that to say, so she said, "I want to compete again, but this time I want to say in everything. I'm going to tell you how much I can practice when I need a break, eat. I want input on the choreography. I don't want to be involved." She told her dad, "You're not going to be managing this time." All that stuff. So she dictated how she was going to come back. And she was having fun. She's like, "I want to do it for fun, as long as I'm having fun." And she ended up winning 2 golds in Winter Olympics, one in team and one in individual. And this is the first time in 24 years, I think they said, that a U.S. Women's figure skaters won individual gold. And
Wow.
if you watch her, just watch the YouTube clips and all that, she's clearly having fun. I mean,
Hmm.
her smile was like nonstop. She was joyous. I mean, even in her routine, you can tell how much fun she was having. And so that just showed the world. And people were commenting like, "Oh, so you can do it differently." So this ties into what we do for business, right? That
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
actually can win on your own terms and not lose your soul doing it, right? And
Yeah.
so at the top of the game and in such a competitive environment like figure skating, that you can do it on your own terms and maintain fun while you're doing it. I think that was a great example to the world, but also reaffirms like, hey, it's not just in business, it's not just for small business, but it's people that's peak in an international competition that can do that. Then anybody can do it.
Yeah.
And I'd say I'm still in the learning process. We are in the middle of moving out of California. And so it's a growing process for me. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes it's daily. I wrote down all the things, all the reasons why we want to move and all the things I'm excited about. And I remind myself that on a continuous basis because it's just so many moving parts. And I've lived in California all my life and have not moved around a lot like Robert has. And so there's a lot of new experiences that I'm learning. And I'm like, you know what? It's going to be okay. So I just need to remind myself of all the positive things. And you know what? Sometimes I can say to myself, part of me really doesn't want to move because part of me doesn't, but part of me does. So being able to acknowledge that and still be able to move forward.
Yeah.
I like that.
With the move.
Robert, Kaylee, thank you both for joining us, sharing with us. And where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about the work that you share?
Well, if you go to marriedentrepreneur.co/familyinvests. So we created kind of a specific landing page for your audience. And in it, there's a couple things. One is a free gift. It's an assessment, marriage and business assessment. So it kind of measures your marriage and business in 6 key areas to see where you're doing well and what needs a little love in your marriage or business. And then, have our access to our book, Tandem, The Married Entrepreneur's Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance. And if you want to just connect and have a discovery call, and you can do so there too as well.
Podcast is on there as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. You guys were fantastic. You dropped a ton of good information. So this has definitely been a great episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to meet a fellow Hawaiian.
All right, a couple takeaways from this one. First, that lazy millionaire approach isn't exactly about being lazy. It's more about disciplined simplicity, long-term investing with fewer moving parts, less emotional decision-making, that kind of thing.
And for marriage, it was a great reminder that alignment doesn't happen accidentally. Their weekly meetings, shared calendars, and hard boundaries like no phones at dinner time, those are small things that protect something bigger.
Yeah, that was really good. And if you want their assessment and the free gift, make sure you go to marriedentrepreneur.co/familyinvests.
Have a great week, everyone. See you next time. Thanks for being part of the family today. If you want a closer look at our journey through real life, business, and all the wild adventures, follow us on Instagram at Our Family Invest. And for free resources to help you on your own path, head to ourfamilyinvest.com.
If you like this episode, send it to a friend. And if you're feeling extra generous, drop us a quick review. It really helps us grow this community. Thank you so much for being part of our family today. We really, truly appreciate you. Yeah, that totally sounds like you're reading it, which you're obviously not. So maybe we should start over.
Well, you gave me 1 second to look over it.
Well, you can look over it now.
Who am I talking to?
You're talking to the viewer out there.
Oh, okay.
Talk to the audience.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In conjunction, you'll also hear practical...
Conjunction? That's not a word people use.
Okay.
I'll try again. And then you can chime in, okay? Feel free to chime in anytime.
Well, you kind of left us hanging.
I left you hanging,
without
okay.
a breath.